Hello there, it's Mario here. Hope you're doing well, hope you're making some good gains. In this video, we're going to talk a bit about bulking. I want to share with you the 3 biggest mistakes when it comes to setting up your bulking diet, when it comes to setting up your macros, that I see guys make all the time. Now, we all want to bulk at some point. We want to gain size. You don't want to be skinny all the time. If your goal is really to maximize your performance in the gym, whether it's strength, whether it's just for physical appearance, having more mass, it is usually a good idea. Now, you don't want to gain size overnight. You actually could. I mean, here you can see my tricep instantly gained size overnight. I actually got a shot here. I don't know if you guys can see on the camera. This is because my finger got busted in the gym, and they were suspicious about the machine being rusted, and yeah, that's basically what happened. So I got immediate gains within 24 hours. They will go away soon. And yeah, anyways, going back to the whole bulking situation, let's go over the 3 biggest mistakes. Number 1 mistake that I see happen to a lot of guys, especially skinnier guys trying to gain a lot of size, and they're having trouble eating enough food, is that their protein is too high. You know, guys read online, they read bodybuilding magazines, they read the forums, and it says protein is good. More protein logically seems like a better solution. If I can just put in more is better. In reality, after a certain threshold of protein, more protein doesn't do anything. It actually makes you feel fuller, which is great on a diet, but on a bulking situation, if you're interested in maintaining a surplus every day or however your diet is set up, more protein will actually make it harder for you to consume that necessary amount of food. When it comes to my own clients, what I generally recommend is, like, when someone is moving away from, let's say, a cutting diet or a maintenance to bulking, is to slowly start replacing those low-fat protein sources such as lean chicken breast, lean turkey breast, low-fat cheese, things like very, very low-fat fish. I recommend replacing those with more fattier sources. So instead of going for the low-fat variation of cottage cheese, you can get the one that has about 4 grams of fat. It just makes everything easier because you need to consume less food if food consumption is an issue, and you can also eat a little bit of a tastier food, such as, let's say, chicken thighs compared to chicken breast. Chicken breast basically tastes like cardboard, while chicken thighs actually have some taste. And then especially fattier fish, which is pretty damn awesome. So you can combine these foods so you can get your protein, and somewhere around a gram per pound is totally fine. So even going a little bit above, or let's say a tiny bit under, is not a big deal because you're in a caloric surplus. When you're in a surplus, there's no danger of losing muscle. When you're in a diet, protein demands tend to go up a little bit. Slightly increased protein is recommended, but on a bulk, you don't really have to worry about it. For most guys, somewhere in the range of about 140 to 170 grams of protein will be totally fine. Again, if you go a little bit higher, not a big deal if you still hit your daily calories, but keep in mind that protein is very, very filling, and also it has a very high thermogenic effect. So the calories that you're getting from protein won't be causing as much of a surplus as much as those calories from carbs and fats. Now, this brings me to the second mistake, something that I see happen pretty much with every guy that is kind of in this evidence-based fitness world, or watching a lot of videos, reading a lot of books, is people are creating a sort of an imbalanced macro approach when it comes to bulking, right? So it's usually either super high carb, very, very low fat, in the hopes that somehow you can minimize fat gain by doing that. Or on the other hand, I've met guys that actually go on a low carb approach to bulk. So we're not talking about ketogenic diets, which can work, of course, but we're talking about low carb approach to gaining. So people go to the extremes. And the reason why I'm kind of against those extremes is because it makes the diet taste in a very specific way. It also makes it very difficult to get in enough calories in some situations. So let's first look at the high carb, low fat approach. Usually palatability will suffer. If you go very, very low fat, if you have to eat a lot of plain carbs, we're talking about half a kilo of rice a day, we're talking about a lot of potato, we're talking about a lot of food, it's not going to be very easy for you to get in that amount. So having a more balanced approach in that situation, where you go higher in the fats and higher in the carbs and kind of balance out the macros, is probably a good idea, while of course keeping that protein around a gram per pound. And that's gonna give you the exact good starting point, and then you can tweak it on depending on your food preference, but try a more balanced, more moderate approach to each macronutrient. Then on the other hand, when we're talking about low carb, very, very high fat, and kind of moderate protein diets, those can work, but again, those foods will be blander. And additionally, I mean, if you're training really, really hard on a lean gaining phase, if you want to get more volume in the gym, if you really, really want to crush it, which you should, because more calories, more food means more recovery in most cases, it is a good idea to have a little bit of higher carbohydrate intake to fuel that performance. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing a ton of volume in the gym, you might benefit a little bit from those carbohydrates, or at least all those carbohydrates that you currently have, at least place them strategically on the training days or around workouts on specific days that you train. So that would be my recommendation, which I see a lot of guys kind of fail at. The third biggest mistake, and it kind of is related to the first two, but this is something very common, it's something I made a mistake with as well, and that is ignoring the composition of the diet, ignoring food choices on a bulk. I made this mistake. When you have, let's say you've been cutting for a couple of months, 6 months or so, and then all of a sudden you're in this maintenance, you have more calories, and all of a sudden you're lean gaining. It's very easy to start thinking about the lean gaining diet as just a list of restaurants or like a list of foods that you were just depriving yourself of, and now all those foods need to come into the diet. So you basically blow all your carbs, all your fats on highly processed foods. Now, flexible dieting does work, and there's decent, even anecdotal experience. If you want to look at guys, eat just ice cream and protein and lose weight. If you're in a caloric deficit, you can also obviously gain weight without having a good diet composition. But when we're looking from a standpoint of the right mindset, how to approach this, and for maximizing the outcome and maximizing the nutrition value of your diet, it's critical that to have at least about 80% of those foods come from whole, healthy, unprocessed sources. So it's not just going a YOLO mode and just eating Pop-Tarts and ice cream all day to hit your carbs and your fats, but it's really looking at the diet more of like, okay, how can I include as much of healthy nutrition as possible into these calories that I have? Because when you have that many calories at your disposal, you can actually go for very, very high fat sources that are really healthy. Fatty fish, you can add a lot of avocado, you can add a lot of things to your diet that you couldn't have maybe if you're eating, let's say, 1800 calories, and if you're cutting, you're limited in how much you can do without feeling super hungry. In most cases, what kind of the hypertrophy-oriented person or the fitness enthusiast will end up doing on a cut is a higher carbohydrate approach, moderate to hard carb, and then it's going to be lower fat, and it's going to be somehow about a moderate amount of protein. And in that kind of diet, it's going to be blander at the end of it. And at the end of the diet, if you're really serious to getting to that 6-7% body fat, it's going to be low carb, low fat, and moderate high protein. That's a very, very specific situation. But for most guys, it's usually the low fat, high carb approach. And once you move to eating more fat, you just have all these extra options. And I see a lot of people spend them on junk food instead of investing more into higher fat fish, investing more into really preparing proper meals that will give you that good nutrition, eating more fruit, eating more of healthy food, preparing something that is absolutely delicious, but it's healthy at the same time, will give you much more benefits when it comes to your health. And long term, what you're doing really is you're getting yourself ready for that next cut. If you think about it, if you just eat a ton of junk, if you get used to eating a boatload of junk, when you need to go to a maintenance phase and eventually to a cut, you're gonna have a very, very hard time. Your dopamine receptors, your brain is gonna be all over that. You're not gonna be able to restrict your intake, and your food taste receptors will be matching that high intake, basically of high intake of junk food, which is usually overly sweetened, it's enhanced in flavors. There's a lot of things there. There's some books on that. I'm going to leave a couple in the description where I talk about the taste aspect of it, where there's things like MSG coming into play, where your brain literally gets addicted to having the taste. And then that is also associated with the fact that these foods are usually high fat, high sugar, and high salt, right? That's kind of the ideal combination with a specific texture and taste. Now, if you train your brain to expect those kinds of foods all the time, you're gonna have a hard time when it's time to just eat a simple meal when it's time to cutting. And you guys know I'm a big fan of a little bit of a blender diet, you know, just a normal diet, normal types of foods that your grandmother would have prepared, you know, and have you eat. You know, it's not some kind of junky diet. It's basically stuff that you would prepare at home that is simple, that is delicious, that is nutritious, and it's gonna keep you full. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind that you wanna think a couple of steps ahead, not just think about, okay, what's the dessert that I wanna try out tomorrow? Think about how that's playing out in the future, because in a couple of months, you're gonna be facing that decision to go on a cut. And a lot of people, they almost have that scar from going on a cut and they never wanna cut again because they had that experience. Now they're in a bulk and it's almost like turning into this YOLO dreamer bulk and it's never ending. And that's because they get so into eating these foods and they're kind of just hovering around that average physique and they never really lean down again. I know plenty of examples of this, so keep that in mind. Don't ignore food quality, food composition. It plays a big role in the way you approach your food and your relationship with food, as well as how much you're getting out of your diet. Now, aside from that, quick summary: protein, keep it moderate, 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Make sure to try to balance out those macros a little bit to get a very, very wide range of foods into your diet. And number 3, don't ignore the food quality, food composition of your diet. Those are the top 3 mistakes. Hope you had a good time listening to this video, enjoying it. As well, leave me in the comments below, have you ever made any one of these 3 mistakes? So leave me a comment below. Aside from that, hope you enjoyed. As I said, make sure that subscribe button below to support the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.